Welcome to another edition of the Rome News-Tribune Studio Central Face-to-Face. I'm your host, Doug Walker. Our very special guest today is the Commissioner of the Georgia Department of Technical College System of Georgia. Got to get that right. Ron Jackson. Ron's in with us today and speaking to the Rotary Club in Rome during his visit to Rome. I guess it's been about maybe two and a half years since the system launched a pretty significant consolidation of schools across the state. Tell us a little bit about how that has gone and how that has helped you budget-wise.
Well, it's gone fairly well. It was certainly controversial when first announced. It was an initiative to help us save dollars, just plain and simple. We had significant budget reductions. We have since the announcement of the merger here between what was Coosa Valley Technical College and Georgia Northwestern, we have now done 17 colleges into 8 administrations. The good news is that we didn't close any campuses. We didn't stop services or eliminate programs. We really just eliminated some administrative overhead. Now that's tough. It's a challenge. It's tough on communities. The merger here went very well. It was very smooth. The leadership of Craig McDaniel and Pete McDonald, who is now the president, the boards of directors, the foundations of the 2 colleges came together very well. It went smoothly. A lot of challenges, a lot of concerns, particularly at the local level and on the campuses of the college. But we went from a college here in Coosa Valley that basically had a couple of campuses. The new merged college has 5 campuses. Now they'll soon have 6, a new one in Catoosa. So overall, the mergers helped save about $8.5 million for the taxpayers. It was necessary for us to be able to continue to do what we do in the classroom and provide the training people need to get jobs. And
when the economy went sour, I suspect that numbers went up at most of your institutions. And as you alluded to, the campus here in Northwest Georgia, we've already added one or in the process of adding another. Are you seeing that kind of growth elsewhere in the state as well?
Right now, because the economy has come back a bit, and we had some other changes. We had some changes to the HOPE program, which lowered the amount of money and the financial aid that some students could get for HOPE. We went from quarters to semesters, which had some impact on enrollment. But mostly the economy began to tick back up and more people were getting back to work. That's a traditional historical thing. When the economy's down and people are out of work, our enrollment goes up. And 2 years ago, we were at 195,000 students. That's the highest we'd ever had in the system. We're back down to just over 150,000 students last year. It looks like this year we're going to tick back up again. The enrollment's going to go back up. We've done some fixes to HOPE. The HOPE grant is a lot easier to access now than it was for a couple of years when we were having to make adjustments to HOPE to keep it from going broke. And at the end of the day, that 195,000 big watermark for us in the system, really driven by the economy. It's good that we have 150,000 technical education students now. I expect that'll tick back up by the end of this fiscal year and somewhere in the range of 160,000, but that's a little bit of a projection at this point in time.
Well, I ask you, A, is that an economic forecast of some sense, and B, that's got to make budgeting extremely difficult because you cannot budget 1 year, probably even 2 years in advance. You've got to be able to look down the road several years, and with a fluctuation, that's from 195 to 150, if my math is anywhere near reasonable, that's close to a 25% fluctuation.
It's a big fluctuation. It is very challenging to budget for. The state has gone through very difficult budget times, as you know. The revenues have been down for almost 5 years running. That was driven by the economy and the housing market. And there's not a lot the state can do except manage the dollar. We don't run a deficit budget. We have to balance the budget every year, so there's only so much money to go around. In the interim, we had to adjust our tuition. Our tuition has gone up over the last 4 or 5 years. It's still a great buy. It's $85 a credit hour for almost all of our programs. Our fee structure is pretty reasonable. So it's a very affordable college option for students and for citizens to get the training they need to get a job. But it's tough to budget when you have those kinds of fluctuations and when you can't, when the state just can't really predict what those tax revenues are going to be to support. So we've had to take on a lot more of the responsibility of funding ourselves. We've really had to generate our own revenue sources beyond just state funds in order to make it work.
Has the partnerships that the system has developed with industry across the state to meet the needs of industry, has that helped you financially? Incredibly,
incredibly. Our business partners and the technical college system has a rich history of working with businesses. With our Quick Start program that helps new businesses or expanding businesses really train their workforce to the relationship our colleges have and the college here has with the business community. And very specifically, a good example here is the great work that has been done at the Whitfield campus with the flooring industry. Shaw and Mohawk and others really stepped up to the plate in us putting that campus together. They've helped equip a lot of those megatronics and electrical laboratories there. They've stepped up to the plate because we just didn't have the resources to put into the laboratories the kinds of equipment that they needed to train the workforce they have today and that they need today. That kind of business partnership and support that they give us, not just in this community, but all across the state. In the medical care industry, hospitals provide us a lot of equipment for our nursing programs and for our other programs. Hospitals very often even provide us dollars for our faculty for those medical programs. That business relationship that we have with all across the state in the technical colleges is really, I think, a key component of our success.
Well, I'm glad you talked a little bit about some of those changes too, because that leads fairly nicely into the next question. You've had to respond to industry, to changes. I think when the technical college system was first developed, we were talking a lot about welders and carpenters and brick masons, and then that changed, and we've moved into computers and robotics. And yet one of the things that we're hearing now, one of the biggest needs in Georgia is back to some of the skilled maintenance positions. But even those positions are dramatically different than they were 30 years ago. How does that impact the people who are developing your curriculum?
Well, it really impacts our curriculum. It impacts, quite frankly, Georgia's economy in huge ways that we have to support those businesses to have the kinds of workers they need. Welding is very complex now. There are many levels of welding. A welder that's working on the nuclear power plant over in East Georgia is a different kind of welder than perhaps some people see as welding. The plant floors in manufacturing look nothing today like they looked in the old days of the mills. The equipment is highly sophisticated, highly robotic. We need technicians to operate almost every manufacturing plant in Georgia. The Kia automotive plant in West Point looks nothing like the GM and Ford plants that were in Atlanta at one time. It's highly mechanized. It runs on information technology and very complex programs, and that's true in every manufacturer that comes to Georgia now. Our new bioscience company, Baxter International, that will be building $1 billion plant over on the east side of Atlanta. It requires some very sophisticated technicians. What that means for us. And the reason we're the technical college system now, as opposed to the Department of Technical and Adult Education, is that those jobs that are out there today, the jobs that will make Georgia economically successful, they require smart people with highly technical skills. It really is the workforce of today and tomorrow is going to require smart folks with great technical skills. So the trades changed. The trades, even in agriculture, the carpentry, the technology that's used in every facet of our life requires different kinds of workers, and those workers have got to have skill levels that require a lot of mathematics. Yesterday over at Whitfield, we were looking at a fast track program where we're working with the flooring industry, and there were 40, 50-year-old people that work in the industry and want to work in the industry, unemployed folks that were sitting in the room with calculators and doing very complex mathematic computations in order to work on the machines that the company has now. So it really is a different, it's a different workplace now than it was even 20 years ago.
You mentioned adult education. One of the things that I suspect has probably also been a challenge here in recent years has been changes in immigration law, because I know we've had a lot of immigrants to Georgia that have been in the adult education and the ESOL programs.
Right.
How tough have been dealing with some of those changes been, and how has that impacted your numbers?
Well, it's impacted our numbers in the adult education side of the house fairly significantly. We typically, over the years, have served close to 100,000 students in adult education. One of our responsibilities is the GED and adult education classes. And serving 100,000 was pretty typical. We're down to serving about 70 to 75,000 now. And the vast majority of that reduction were students that were coming to take English as a second language. I think the immigration changes certainly had an impact on that. A lot of those students just do not show up now. Whether it's out of fear or whether it's that they've gone and left, it's a little bit unclear, but it certainly has impacted. What it has not impacted as much is our adult basic education courses, which is the coursework that students are really working to get their GED. And I can't tell you how important that work is. 1.2 million Georgians over the age of 18 don't have a high school credential. That's unsustainable in an economy that we have to have the kind of workers I described before. You've got to have a high school diploma and probably post-secondary education to succeed and get even a ground level job in a manufacturing plant or in the healthcare system or in aviation or logistics. It doesn't really matter what industry it is. You're probably going to have some post-secondary training today, and you've got to have that high school diploma. 1.2 million Georgians over the age of 18 without that credential is something we have to address, and we've got to address it aggressively. I can tell you there are 39 counties in Georgia with over 30% of their population that don't have a high school diploma. That is not a recipe for economic success for those counties or those regions. So we're attacking the problem to the limits we can with the funding we get. We get both state and federal funding to provide that training and the GED. The training is at no cost. The GED test does cost. We get a lot of support and scholarship support from communities in our Certified Literate Community Program, which is volunteers who go out and help us raise money to do that. But adult education is critically important. And the impact of English as a second language with the immigration law, it's a little bit unclear exactly what was driving that, but it did in fact drive down our numbers.
Well, Commissioner, we appreciate you taking some time out of a busy week. It takes a week just to visit all of the campuses of Georgia Northwestern Technical College.
It does. It does.
We appreciate it. Commissioner Ron Jackson on the latest edition of Studio Central Face to Face. Thank you.
Thank you.